Hi, welcome back. I don't look like I usually do. I'm usually dressed up as Samantha, but I did that yesterday and I didn't feel like getting redressed and so forth. Plus, I'm letting my hair just grow in just because I think it's healthy and I don't want to shave it too often. You might notice fortunately, some red marks here. I'm going to have to figure out how to do that better. But anyway, the topic today is what I would have done had I been tasked with creating chapters 1, 2, and 3 for the Star Wars saga. This video will give spoilers out. I'm saying right up front, if you don't want to be spoiled about what happens in the Star Wars films, episodes 4, 5, and 6, and so forth, and even I guess 1, 2, and 3. I guess I don't like saying this, but don't watch this video if you don't want to be spoiled. All right. That having been said, I want to explain what the purpose of this is. I'm not taking George Lucas's episodes 1, 2, and 3 as created and released in theaters. 1999, 2000, and 2003, something like that. I'm not doing that at all. I'm starting from scratch. There are references in episodes 4, 5, and 6 to the backstory, what happened before episodes 4, 5, and 6. I was born in 1975, the end of 1975, and from what I'm told, I had fallen asleep in the movie theater when I was taken to see the first film in 1977. So I would have been like 2.5 or a year and something or other. And then I didn't see Empire Strikes Back, and the earliest movie I know that I had seen in a movie theater was Return of the Jedi. And then since then, I grew up with those three films, having seen them in home video. So it was a long time, and especially for a kid, it would feel like a long time before the first film came out in 1999. Now, usually I piece together what references in movies to what happened before. I mean, it's a usual thing. So what was I piecing together? Well, it differs from the official Star Wars episodes 1, 2, and 3 that later came out, and that's what bothered me. Even though I do applaud George Lucas and I recognize certain aspects of why he did those things the way he did, and just the way he constructed those films the way he did. This is not a comment or a dispute about how George Lucas constructed the official episodes 1, 2, and 3. This is an effort to differentiate the backstory that had been referenced in episodes 4, 5, and 6, and to show how they're different from episodes 1, 2, and 3. And if you watch episodes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 in numerical order, you will be confused. If you're paying close attention, you will be confused because they don't exactly match. Now, okay, so I'm also going to get into some history about the probable inspirations for what you see and why you see them in the Star Wars movies. Okay, so to start off, I suspect I won't go into I won't go into in-depth detail because I haven't even sketched it out. To start off, I know George Lucas was inspired by movie serials like Flash Gordon. That's why you see, first of all, the transitions the scene transitions in the Star Wars films. They're not George Lucas's invention. It's not classic 70s. 70s movies did not scene transition like that. By scene transition, I mean the wipes and so forth. That was clearly from the 1930s and 40s movie serials. What's a movie serial? It's not something you eat in breakfast. A movie serial is basically a long form, a full movie, but it's chopped up into chapters or episodes. And it would be shown on a weekly basis. Each episode would be played in a weekly basis. I think they would be alongside the main feature. As I understand it, or my impression is that you would go to see like The Wizard of Oz or some movie, and then alongside that, there would be other smaller, shorter cartoons and so forth shown before the main feature. And one of those was a movie serial, and you would just see a chapter, and then next week you would see the next chapter, and then the next week you'd see the following chapter, and so forth. That's why there would be, typically in the opening, there would be some kind of description of what happened in the previous episode. And then there would be a cliffhanger at the end of that episode, and the episodes or chapters would be numbered. Chapter 1, Chapter 2, Chapter 3, and so forth. You can find these movies like there was at least one Flash Gordon movie serial. There were 2 Superman movie serials. There was at least one Batman movie serial. There were other movie serials. So George Lucas, and I believe he's actually said this, George Lucas took that format and wanted to create, when he came out with Star Wars, it wasn't originally Episode 4, it was originally just Star Wars. He intended it to seem like a chapter from one of these movie serials, or like you're tuning into part of a whole saga movie serial. However, that's why you have the opening crawl, and if you look specifically at Flash Gordon, you see not only what was a typical movie serial. I think Buck Rogers had a movie serial as well. But anyway, it's not just something shown on the screen. If I remember correctly, the Flash Gordon movie, the opening crawl was at a slant, just like in Star Wars, and people have noticed the font type and the 4 dots and everything, just like in Flash Gordon, the same in Star Wars. So anyway, when in 1980, when Empire Strikes Back came out, if I have this correctly, it said Episode 5, The Empire Strikes Back, and then shortly afterward, Star Wars 1977 was re-released, and this time it was added Episode 4 to coincide with Episode 5 that had just been released. Now, what I want to do is explain some bits about my version of Episodes 1, 2, and 3, how I would have done it, completely from scratch, using just the background information from the Episodes 4, 5, and 6. I would not have an opening crawl in the first episode because typically in a movie serial, there is no backstory. It simply begins. And the whole point of an opening crawl or an opening bit of text is to summarize what had just happened in the previous chapter. So, in Episode 1, my Episode 1, there would have been no previous episode, so I would simply have it begin. Something like perhaps Rogue One. I would simply how that just simply began. I would have it begin, and then there would be a cliffhanger, and then another cliffhanger. At the end of Episode 1, and then cliffhanger at the end of Episode 2. Movie serials traditionally used cliffhangers at the ends of episodes, or the ends of chapters, however you call it. Now, there are a few significant differences I would make. One is knowing that people would watch these in numerical order, or there's a high likelihood that they would watch these in numerical order. Thank goodness people, noobs who haven't seen Star Wars before, many of them know enough to watch episode 4 first, or release order, or whatever they call it. But I, even back then, I couldn't guarantee that. So I didn't know enough to get to feel reassured about that. So I would simply have, in episode 3, I would have Anakin Skywalker kind of vanish, or seem, he would be heroic and he would simply vanish from the movie at some point in episode 3. And then later you would see Darth Vader fully in mask and so forth, hunting down and killing all the Jedis. And I would not make any correlation between Anakin Skywalker and Darth Vader. Now, why am I doing that? That's because the audience's mind would be going through episodes 1, 2, and 3, would be aware of the heroism of Anakin Skywalker. And then when you see Darth Vader at the end of 3, and then in 4, and then throughout 5, you would be unaware that he is also Anakin Skywalker. And that would preserve, it's all about preservation. It would preserve that shock at the end of 5, when Darth Vader reveals that he is Anakin Skywalker. Because the way George Lucas constructed his prequel trilogy and the original trilogy, and he said so, there are very much different audience reactions depending on which one you've seen first. If you see the prequel trilogy before the original trilogy, or in that stupid machete order or whatever. Well, not the machete. Okay, aside from the machete order. If you see the prequel trilogy before the original trilogy, you already know that big reveal, that big revelation. So you're watching that famous scene, cliffhanger scene at the end of Empire Strikes Back from Darth Vader's point of view. You're not seeing it from Luke's point of view. And clearly in the scene, the whole movie, first of all, the original trilogy, at least one of the storylines in that trilogy has Luke Skywalker being the main character. By main character, I don't mean protagonist. I mean main character being the person through whose eyes the audience is experiencing the movie, actually experiencing the movie. So if you've only seen the 1977 movie and then Empire Strikes Back, you're experiencing all this through Luke's eyes, and you only know what he knows. So at that scene, when Darth Vader reveals to Luke that he's Luke's father, you'd be experiencing the surprise and the shock and dismay and confusion from Luke's point of view. So that in the next movie, you're continuing, or even more so, you're continuing in Luke's point of view. You're watching him having come to grips with Darth Vader being his father, and then believing that he can turn his father back to the light side of the Force. So if you watch the prequel trilogy, and this is why I don't like the machete order, which is watching 4, 5, and then watching the prequel trilogy, and then watching 6. For several reasons. One, it interrupts the flow. 4, 5, and 6 create acts 1, 2, and 3. The 1977 movie Star Wars: A New Hope is Act 1, where it's introducing you to the characters and the world and so forth. And then the middle movie is Act 2, where typically in a movie you've introduced the characters and the premise, and now you throw them into deeper and deeper elements of danger, so that at the end, you may have noticed this, at the end of Act 2 of a movie, it's their lowest point, and that's what you see in the end of Empire Strikes Back. Luke is at his lowest point emotionally, and the Empire Struck Back. The rebels are at their lowest point. And then in Return of the Jedi, it swings upward in the rebels' favor. And there's a success at the end. If you watch the prequel trilogy, that is also a trilogy of Acts 1, 2, and 3. Episode 1 is Act 1, Episode 2 is Act 2, and Episode 3 is Act 3. And it ends on a downbeat. And Return of the Jedi ends on an upbeat. So there's that nice, there should be a term for it. And I'm sure George Lucas is fully aware of it, that the prequel trilogy ends like this, and the succeeding original trilogy ends like that. Unless you're going on along the side of the Empire, you're favoring the side of the Empire, then it's reversed. Anyway, all right. So my way of doing it preserves that surprise in case you're watching in numerical order, the episodes in numerical order. If you've watched my versions of 1, 2, and 3, somewhere in 3, you simply watch Anakin as a hero vanish, and Darth Vader comes into the movie, and you don't know where he came from. So that at the end of episode 5, there is that big surprise. That's the same reason that I would not include Yoda. Now, I understand why George Lucas, at least in the case of Yoda, wanted to introduce him and feature him in the first 3 movies. It's a fun character, and Yoda is part of the Star Wars saga. And audiences would be wondering, well, where's Yoda? Where's Yoda? We want to see Yoda. Well, if I were doing the movies, I would be inclined to not have Yoda seen on screen. That preserves episode 5, the surprise in episode 5, where Luke goes to Dagobah. He's heard that from the ghost of Ben that he must train under Yoda. So he goes to Dagobah, and he sees this small creature that doesn't seem very powerful, is just an imp, sort of, who's just almost like mocking Luke and testing Luke's patience, precisely testing Luke's patience. So there's a big surprise when they're in Yoda's hut, home, whatever you call it, and Yoda suddenly shifts his tone of voice. He's no longer saying mine, 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 and acting all funny. He suddenly assumes a tone of seriousness. He was clearly testing Luke's patience. In fact, his first words after he's shifted tone is, "The boy has no patience." So that's immediately when Luke recognizes, oh, you're Yoda. So my way of doing it, I would have Yoda be a character spoken about off camera. They would make references to Yoda being this great Jedi Master, and you'd be curious. You'd be picturing this big, powerful figure, tall, large, intimidating, powerful figure. And it would be perhaps an even bigger surprise when you learn that it's actually Yoda. That you learn that this Yoda figure is really this small imp-like creature. So what would I have as the big baddie in the first 3 movies? Well, I would not have the Empire being the baddies. I can understand why George Lucas would have. I even feel this urge to dramatize this transformation from a republic into a tyranny of the galactic empire. I mean, it's tantalizing, it's teasing. I mean, I even feel the urge to do that. However, I don't want it to become too political because that would differentiate it from the mood, the tone of episodes 4, 5, and 6. Episodes 4, 5, and 6 were in the style of a 1930s and 40s movie serial with a lot of action and adventure. I would want to keep it in the style of action and adventure, and I would have the politics going on in the background. In 4, 5, and 6, there were references to the Empire and to what was going on, somewhat, a little bit about what was going on in the galaxy, and there were some references to what happens between movies, a little bit. So I would have it like that. However, I would not want to have that be the focus as much as I would want to. And of course, now with television, with these Star Wars television series, limited series, and so forth, you can be able to show. You could have shown. Well, now you could have shown a drama of how the Republic turned into the Empire. I would have kept that in the background, though. I would have had the Clone Wars. I would have had episodes 4, 5, and 6. I'm sorry. I would have had episode 1 with them beginning to deal with the whoever the adversaries were in the Clone Wars. I don't know what the Clone Wars would have been about. Obviously cloning, and there's some sense of maybe cloning an army. There was a reference in an earlier draft, I think by Susan was it Susan? No, Lee Brackett, in her draft of Empire Strikes Back, that Lando was a clone, or I think she even had Princess Leia, guessing that Lando was a clone. All right, so episode 1, I would have Obi-Wan Kenobi, not referred to as Ben Kenobi, but Obi-Wan Kenobi, a younger age, being introduced as the main character, and probably the main character throughout the first 3 films. I would not have it be Anakin, as much as I would like to. I would not have it be Anakin Skywalker, because you're seeing these movies through the main character's eye. That's the point of the main character, and if Anakin were to vanish from the audience somewhere through episode 3, and then Darth Vader come in, that takes you out of him being the main character. So I would rather have Obi-Wan Kenobi be the main character. And again, he would be referring to Yoda, who would be an off-screen character. He is called to action by the king of Organia, who's the father of Princess Leia. Princess Leia hasn't been born yet. Obviously, it would be the king or prime minister, probably a king. I mean, it would have to be king because she was princess. So I would keep that in line. He would be the king or some member of royalty of Organia, and he enlists Obi-Wan Kenobi, who's in the Republic army as a knight, as a Jedi Knight, and he had been General Kenobi, so he would have been like captain, and earlier he would have made it up to general. Like in the original trilogy, had Han Solo suddenly in the second movie, I think, being captain, and then for some bizarre reason, I'm still trying to figure that out, he was frozen carbonite, but yet while he was frozen, he was promoted to general somehow. I don't know how that worked in the third movie. Episode 6, I don't know how that works, but I would like to take a nap and then be promoted suddenly while I'm napping for some months or something. Anyway, um, he's called into action to fight off this adversary. He somehow meets Anakin Skywalker, who has a brother, Owen, and Owen runs a farm, probably on Tatooine. Uh, Baru, I don't know if Baru would be in there, probably. Um, and he would argue with Anakin and also argue with Obi-Wan about Anakin leaving to go on this mission to rescue whoever, some people, or go off to fight the Clone Wars. And eventually, well, ultimately, I mean, Anakin leaves and Owen stays on the farm. Now, we follow through. Let me see here. See what I've already. Oh, of course. Later on in the third film, I would have Darth Vader going through and killing the Jedi Knights. And this clear, basically how it happened in episode 3. Only he would be in as Darth Vader, in full helmet and suit and so forth. I would not have him obviously looking like Anakin Skywalker, because then you would instantly know that the two are the same person. Now, I think that's basically how I would do it. Of course, I would follow the structure of a movie serial. I would have an upbeat at the end of episode 1. I would have a downbeat and a real large cliffhanger at the end of episode 2, and then a success, perhaps a success, at the end of episode 3. Now, my episode 3 would have been something like what happened with Rogue One, where there's rebel spies and so forth, so that at the beginning of episode 4, the summary, the opening crawl in episode 4, tells what's happened in the past, only now it works more like those movie serials where it's summarizing what happened in episode 3. I'm iffy on that. I mean, that's strictly what a movie serial would look like if you're following that structure. However, episode 5 had an opening crawl that did not refer to events in episode 4. So I'm open to that. It's problematic because it seems clear that there was some amount of time. I mean, there's like a whole generation there where at the end of episode 3, at the end of both of mine and George Lucas's episode 3, that's a whole generation before. After that, Luke and Leia grow up and kind of mature, at least like 18 years in there somewhere. So, and episodes 4, 5, and 6 give an impression that they're within a short amount of time, like it all happens within a few years or whatever. So I would not want to break up that structure in episodes 1, 2, and 3 and have these huge time gaps. I would want to have episodes 1, 2, and 3 happen within a few years as well. And in episodes 1, 2, and 3, I would follow what they had in episodes 4, 5, and 6, in that they had one side, like one army or one side that you're rooting for against another side, and they didn't change a lot of stuff. It was basically the rebels versus the Empire. So in the episodes 1, 2, and 3, I would have the Republic against this, I guess, external adversary. Whatever this adversary is, my guess is the clone, whoever's involved in the clone, whatever caused the Clone Wars to come about. I would keep those two teams consistent throughout all 3 movies. Now, I would want to. Here's a fascinating thing. I would want to show the the lightsabers as having been something from the olden days. How do I depict that? Because it's only one generation. When you watch in episode 4, when you watch something that audiences are distracted by, clearly, because I've seen YouTube first time reaction videos, and they're clearly distracted. It's almost poor timing. Ben Kenobi gives Luke his father's lightsaber, and Luke goes like this, and the beam comes out, and of course audiences are mesmerized. Oh my gosh! Oh wow! And that overlaps right over. I mean, audiences miss Obi-Wan Kenobi sitting down and saying something like it was a civilized weapon for a more civilized age, and that says a lot. That means you can draw from that when Obi-Wan was younger, either he lived through this age or he's remembering with fond nostalgia a time when, much like our history, Earth history, earlier conflicts were fought face to face with swords, like literally face to face, and you can draw from that that the time they went from swords and chivalry and so forth to modern weapons and warfare, where you have machine guns and you can strike from hidden zones, and you have much more advanced weaponry. I see that in his comment where he says, this lightsaber, I forget how he describes it, it's like a civilized weapon for a more civilized age. So I would have that in my movie. I would kind of, I guess, play both sides of the fence. I would imply that while lightsabers were used, and clearly Anakin Skywalker had a lightsaber, and Obi-Wan had a lightsaber, and I know fans would be wanting and expecting to see lightsaber duels and so forth. I would have them in the movies, but I would have them be rare, and I would have modern weaponry beginning to take hold and be used more often. Now, there is a duel. There's a point at the end of episode 4, or near somewhere in episode 4, as we're getting into the third act, where Obi-Wan Kenobi confronts Darth Vader, and they have a lightsaber battle. Now, that would be tricky. From what they say to each other, it's implied that they had the last time that they met, literally the last time that they met, apparently, they had a lightsaber duel, some kind of conflict. And Obi-Wan Kenobi, from what they were saying, seems very much the teacher and more experienced than his apprentice, Anakin Skywalker. I don't know how to do that. I don't know how to get them to be shown fighting each other or in conflict if Obi-Wan Kenobi admired Anakin Skywalker. Now, the reason why this comes up is because there was a deleted scene in episode 4. And because that scene wasn't included in episode 4, George Lucas was able to do a retro, I can't remember what they call it, like change the history a bit and have that revelation that Anakin Skywalker actually is Darth Vader. There's a deleted scene. As I recall, Darth Vader is walking through a Death Star corridor with somebody else, or walking through a corridor with somebody else, one of the Empire officials, and there's a reference to him having killed Anakin Skywalker. So Obi-Wan Kenobi was telling the truth in episode 4. He betrayed and murdered your father. That's true. Simply in episode 4 itself. However, if you try to reconcile that with episodes 5 and 6, you have to do what had to be done in episode 6, which is have Obi-Wan kind of dance around the issue and say, well, he murdered Anakin Skywalker, or Darth Vader, murdered the good person that was Anakin Skywalker. That's how you get around it. But in episode 4, clearly they had Anakin as a separate person. And even in, I think, the draft, one of the early versions of episode 6, somehow, I don't remember how, but during the conflict with Darth Vader, between Luke and Darth Vader, they were going to have the ghost of Anakin Skywalker show up. Perhaps even along with Ben Kenobi, I'm not sure. So clearly, Anakin Skywalker was intended to be a separate character. And incidentally, a lot more people know this now, thankfully, but the original name was not Skywalker. It was originally Starkiller, just for the sake of trivia. So I don't know how I would dance around that, having their final duel, or just simply not included at all. I wonder if there's anything else. I also want to mention, this has little relevance really to my episodes 1, 2, and 3. I just want to mention that one of the things that fascinates me about Star Wars itself is this depiction of a republic which is a wonderful, peaceful presence and governing body, and has a Senate, and it's a true democracy. Well, all right, somebody's going to quibble. It's about as close to a democracy as you can get. It's, after all, a republic, turning into a dictatorship, turning into a tyranny, and you can use that as, you can see in that Rome turning from a republic, literally a republic, into an empire. You can see modern governments. In fact, of course, the Weimar Republic in Germany, turning into the Third Reich. And they're common tropes you see in these things. You see a leader-like figure coming out of some leadership area, sometimes the army or military, and then he suddenly just takes over. He uses excuses to take control of the government. There's usually a Senate, a democratically elected Senate, and the powers of the Senate are wiped away, probably gradually or bit by bit. One of my favorite lines in episode 4 is when Governor Tarkin walks in. Some later stories refer to him as Grand Moff, but actually in the movie he's referred to as Governor Tarkin. He walks in and he says that the Emperor, who's an off-screen character at that point, has, I can't remember how he phrases it exactly, but it's has something like disbanded the Senate. That's one of my favorite moments, and unfortunately, not enough people pick up on Governor Tarkin's existence. I don't know whether he's an old man or Darth Vader is such much more intimidating, memorable figure or what, but they seem to forget that Governor Tarkin is even there, even though he's controlling all the shots. I mean, granted, Darth Vader does do some things, but Governor Tarkin is the true villain in this whole thing. And they're surprised. In episode 5, Darth Vader said, the audiences seem to react, oh, you mean there's somebody above Darth Vader? Yes, like in episode 4, the Emperor is referred to by name, and people miss that. And even Governor Tarkin, when Princess Leia is brought in to meet Governor Tarkin, she says, I would have expected you to be holding Vader's leash, as if he is at least on par with Darth Vader, perhaps even higher. People miss that. They just keep thinking. And, it's a good bit of trivia. In the original Kenner action figure series, had like 78 or 80 something figures in there, not including play sets and vehicles and so forth. there was not one Governor Tarkin figure. I can understand why, because they were limited in terms of how many figures they could be able to produce, especially when when the first movie came out in 1978. They just had a few, the classic 10 or something like that figure, 12, something like that figures. Um, Governor Tarkin looks human, so I guess they wanted to go for more characters that had playability or distinctive, and you had Darth Vader, Luke. Once you go through Luke, Leia, Chewbacca, Han Solo, C-3PO, and R2-D2, and so forth, you can't really squeeze in Darth Vader and the Stormtrooper. You can't really squeeze in another human figure, even though, ironically, Governor Tarkin should have been in there. Like, look at any other action figure series. You've got to have the villain. When they were produced, some other company was coming out with Dick Tracy movie action figures. Of course, you're going to have Big Boy Caprice. And for the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, you've got to have the Shredder and these other action figure series. So it's weird that Governor Tarkin, there was never... They did come out with a Governor Tarkin action figure more recently, like 40 years later, 40-something years later. And that's only if you buy, I can't remember what it was, some game, large game, it came with a Governor Tarkin figure. But it's just one of those things. Basically he's calling all the shots, except the smaller things that Darth Vader is doing as an extension arm of the Empire. But Governor Tarkin, there never was an action figure. People just miss his existence altogether. So I don't think I'm leaving out anything. Of course, I would do what George Lucas did do in his movies, all of his movies, the prequel trilogy and the original trilogy. I would include references to other films, visual references. I don't mean like literally spoken references mentioning other films, but I mean make visual allusions that remind you of moments in other movies. I would do that, and I would do other aspects that good movies do. So I think I've spoken all I need to say, and I'll talk to you next time. Bye.